I wanted the area to be as open as possible. The more stuff you have, the more you feel weighed down. It's like you're just going to a new part of your yard you never explored when you were a kid. How's it going? My name is James LeGrand. This is my partner Sky, and together we're LeGrand Adventure Co. So this is the living room and this is the kitchen. It was really important to me that there was lots of living area for entertaining guests and having tea and having people over. So that's why I went with the long couch. And one of the advantages of going with the long couch is that I was able to design it so that it pulls out. And so it can work as a guest bed also. This is my tea sign. A good friend of mine made that for me last year around the time COVID ended. When I first met this group of friends, I was really into making my tea and meeting people and sharing tea. And COVID started and I had to take that whole part of my identity and literally put it on the back burner. So she made it for me as just a sort of way of like, hey, it's time for you to do you and be yourself again. Down here we've got my countertop. It's all butcher block. And one of the things I love about the butcher block is even though it does kind of scuff very easily, any sort of marks that get left on it never seem to last. I'm not exactly sure the science of it, but like anytime I've ever scuffed the counter, I'll look back and in a few days, hey, that mark is gone. Over here we have the sink, and this is actually one of the few things that has changed over the years. In the beginning I had a faucet and a water tank and pump and all that stuff. But what I found was over a couple years of living with the faucet, I didn't actually like it. I had issues with power lines becoming disconnected and leaks. So what I do instead now is in this cabinet, I just have gallons of water, and I find it's a lot easier just to take a gallon of water off the shelf, pour it into whatever you're pouring it into, and then when the jug is empty, throw it in the back, and when I get to a grocery store, bring the empty jugs in with me and buy water like any other grocery. And underneath this piece of the counter is, we've got my burners. So I've got a 3-burner stove and a little oven. So what I love about having the counter be split like this is I can pick what I need at whatever time, which is so key with having a small space like this. So if I'm making something like a salad, I can keep the counter down and use the space for prepping and just throw my salad together. And if I need the burners, I flip it up, and not only does that bring the burners out, when I need them, but it also protects my TV from getting damaged while I'm cooking. My TV is actually a DC TV, so the wires are actually hooked directly into the fuse box. So it actually runs at a very low wattage, and I don't need to invert the power. And underneath here, we've got the fridge. So it's a top loader Dometic. It's super power efficient. The fridge runs all day, every day, and I never think about it. You can set the temperature to however you want to set it. I can put a divider in the fridge and make that third of the fridge a freezer. Personally, I prefer to keep the whole thing a fridge. I think it's more useful, but it's nice to have the option. Up here, we've got the overhead cabinets, and I keep things like my spray bottles, all my cups, paper towels. In this cabinet, it's mostly spices and medicine, but in this jar, I've got something pretty cool. So I've been a traveler for 5 years now, and I've got rocks from every state I've ever been to. So it's a Jewish tradition to collect rocks and leave them at grave sites for the people you love. So I lost my father when I was really young, and it really pushed me to go out and live life to my fullest. So I've been collecting these rocks, and when I get the last 3 that I'm missing, I want to go back to New York and leave them with him so that he knows that I made it, and that I never compromised. Life was put into perspective for me at a very young age. My father, his father, My Uncle Artie, my Aunt Renee, they all passed before they were 45. And my mother, she suffered a life-changing injury before she was 40. And on top of all that, I grew up during the Great Recession, so there was this reoccurring message that there's no guarantees in life. So I became an adventurer because that's who I feel in my heart I was born to be. From the time I was a little kid, I was fascinated with the world. I watched all the documentaries about the Arctic and the desert and the rainforest, and it was all fascinating. And I couldn't imagine living a life where I know all that's out there and never being allowed to go and touch it. So one of my little side projects with the van, aside from being an adventurer, is Nomad Cafe, which is a completely free, completely cashless experience that opens up on busy street sides and at events. When I left my first job at the tea factory, I just asked my boss, hey, can I bring a bunch of tea with me and give it away and see who I can meet? And he had no problem with it. And now it's just a really fun way to create some community and put a little kindness out there. So I call the project Nomad Cafe in loving homage to my favorite show growing up, Avatar: The Last Airbender. The Nomads believed in detaching themselves from worldly concerns in order to live lives of peace and freedom. That really resonated with me when I was a kid, and I knew I wanted to live just like them. One of my favorite quotes from the show is actually on the back of my sign here. Sharing tea with a fascinating stranger is one of life's true delights, and that's really all I've ever wanted from life. All right, so this is the cab of the van. One of my favorite things about the design is that I wanted the area to be as open as possible, so that when I have guests over, or I'm serving tea, or we're playing games, there's lots of room where you can fit way more people than you would expect for such a small vehicle. And just by having the swivel seats, it opens up the area so nicely. I love it. I keep all my clothes up here. This is my WeBoost. So one of the things I was worried about with living off grid is sometimes you get pretty far away from towns and service isn't that great. And while it's not magic, it can't make a signal out of nothing. What it can do is it can take a weak signal, like 1 or 2 bars, and boost it to a point where it's usable. I made sure that I insulated the hell out of the roof, the walls, absolutely everything. And I put not just one, but there's also another one in the back, roof vent fans. And what that does is, even though I don't have air conditioning, it keeps the air flowing and gets the hot, stale air out and brings new air in. And especially in a dry climate, it almost feels like living in air conditioning. So originally I wanted to put the curtain attached to the roof, but what ended up happening is by attaching it at the sides and having it lower, I can have the curtain be closed and still get to my clothes on top, so I can change without people seeing me. With having the pockets on, it gives you soft storage, so you can keep your pencils, your pens, your notebooks, and roll it away, and it doesn't take up that space. Next, we've got a lot of people's favorite part of the van. So in here, we've got the game cabinet. It's really nice to just have one space that's dedicated to all things electrical. And when people come over, it's a lot of fun to be able to just say, hey, what do you want to do? And play a game just like you're at your best friend's house when you're a kid. So here we have the bed area. It's a full-size bed. It's just a foam mattress I bought on Amazon. But I was actually really surprised at how comfortable it is, because I know I only spent like a little over $100 on it. One of the main reasons I went with the ProMaster is it's the only van that's wide enough that you can put a standard size bed sideways like this. And that's what really opened up the area for me to put my couch and be able to have my entertaining space and as much space as I have in here. The stars and stripes, they remind me that I don't have to feel scared or homesick because I never actually left. I remember this is all my home. It's like you're just going to a new part of your yard you never explored when you were a kid. So by far for me, the biggest pro of living this sort of life is the ability to live completely intentionally. Everything that I own is on purpose, and I can tell you exactly where it came from and the story behind it and why it's significant. Anywhere that I am is significant. I chose to be there. I could be somewhere else. And I know I'm living right because I never have days anymore where I wake up and I want to be someone else or do something else or, be living some different life. So one of the crazy things is things that seem like cons at the time proved to be some of this life's greatest strengths. Like, as you can see, I don't have a whole lot of plumbing. And believe it or not, I actually enjoy not having plumbing because I haven't had to deal with a clogged drain or overflowing toilet or any nonsense that comes with plumbing in years because I don't have that stuff. I don't have a shower of my own, but I go to the gym 3 times a week, and that's worked out really good for me. Once you've experienced what it feels like to really be free, you start to see owning stuff as a burden. The more stuff you have, the more you feel weighed down. So it's actually very liberating to have less stuff and to know how it works and to have it be as simple as possible so that you don't have to worry about it. All right, guys, welcome to the garage space. Over here, I keep my my street sign for when I'm serving tea, and behind there, I just keep garbage, chairs, empty water bottles, things like that. Then over here, I got my sports bin, and here's probably the jewel of the garage. This is my bike, Cloud. This is probably my favorite thing I've splurged on since I started Vanlife. The e-bike has just opened up my ability to get out there so much more, especially if I take a day pack and put my second battery in it. I can ride the bike super far. Just over the summer, I did the George Mickelson Trail through the Black Hills of South Dakota, and I went on a 2-day bike ride over 100 miles. Behind the bike, I've actually got my raft. I don't use it super often, but it is cool knowing that if I'm on the water, I can blow the raft up and get out there a little bit. So the best advice I can give is to let go of fear. I don't mean that in a naive, everything will always be okay and life isn't dangerous or hard. It most certainly is. But despite all that, you're strong enough to get through it anyway. Just be brave and remember that nothing is ever as scary in reality as it is in our heads. And I think we've all done that before. We've all been afraid. And we've had this horrible image of, well, what if this happens? What if this happens? And it does. And it was never as bad as it was in our heads. And I think man is in a really interesting position in that we are the only ones who can torture ourselves with things that aren't real. So if you can rise above it, you'll be golden, I promise. I hope you enjoyed the tour of my little home and my little cafe. If you want to keep up with Sky and I, we're Le Grand Adventure Co. on Instagram. And if you ever see us in your town or neighborhood or wherever you come from, stop by. We'd love to have a cup of tea with you.